Hello friends, here we are. This is number 7 of the Mighty Oak Stories. The fairies here. Number 7. Now where do we get up to? Oh, the Major had found a good spot on top of the bookshelves. He could see all around the library. He was looking for a particular section of the library, then he spotted it. It was down 5 stairs and there was 2 double doors. Above the double doors was a sign which clearly said newspaper section. He looked down at Wally, who was eager to run. The Major put his wing up to his mouth and beckoned the rat to be quiet. Wally understood he didn't have to go yet. The Major had a problem. The door was closed. He flew down without anyone seeing and beckoned to Wally to join him. The other 2 rats stayed behind. Wally scuttled over to join the Major. Robert spots them again. They hid behind a big armchair. Robert pulled on his mummy's cardigan. "Mummy, what is it, darling?" "I just saw a big mouse and a seagull over there." He pointed towards the chair. "Don't be silly, Robert. How many times have I told you not to make up stories? Just sit down and wait quietly." "But, Mum, will you do as you're told?" "Okay." The boy threw himself down on the chair, muttering to himself. "What's the matter?" asked Wally. "Can't find what you need?" "Oh, I can. It's there behind those 2 closed doors." "Ah, I see what you mean." At the top of the stairs was a desk where the stern-looking man with the keys sat with his back to the doors. "I know what we could do," said the Major. He whispered the plan to the rat. "Well, it's a plan. We'll have to be very lucky for it to work." "Well, we can but try." The Major poked his head around the chair. No one was looking. He made his way quietly past the desk and where the man was doing paperwork. He did not see him. He then made his way down the stairs. He tapped loudly on the doors with his beak and then quickly hid behind the fire extinguisher to the right of the doors. The man at the desk stood up and turned around. He looked at the doors. When he saw no one through the glass on the upper part of the doors, he sat down. The Major wasn't very pleased. He wasn't used to his plans going wrong. The Major came out of hiding and tapped 4 times. A lot louder, and this time, a lot louder this time, sorry. And he quickly hid behind the fire extinguisher again. With that, the man stood up, looked around at the doors. He couldn't see anyone there. He went to sit down again. Then he thought perhaps a child had been left in there accidentally and can't reach the handle. "I bet that's it." He convinced himself. "That's why I can't see anyone above the glass. It can only be that, as the door is not locked." The man left his desk and made his way down the stairs towards the doors. The Major was on standby, and Wally was at the ready in case the Major needed a diversion. The man opened the door. He walked a little way in, and the Major was right behind him. As the man looked around the room, the Major walked in between his legs and hid without the man seeing him. "Hello, is anyone in here? Hello? Does anyone need help?" "Oh, I must have imagined it," thought the man. He closed the door and returned to his desk. Wally was not needed at that moment, so he just waited patiently till he was. Wally poked his head around the big armchair to see how his boys were. They were still hiding under the bookshelf. They put their thumbs up to tell Wally everything was fine. Wally did the same signal back. The Major waited for about 2 minutes until he was sure it was safe to come out of hiding, and then he began the next part of his mission. There were rows and rows of newspapers on wooden poles. They were 3 rows high, and above those rows were loads of little drawers which were right up to the ceiling. The Major started on the bottom row, and this was going to take him ages. The poles of newspapers went the length of the room. Luckily, the poles swung quite easily. It was a good job the mighty tree had told the Major just to check the front page, so at least he did not have to pull each paper off. The Major had gone along the whole of the bottom row with no success. He went back to the beginning to start on the second row. Now, this was trickier as they were higher up, and the first paper he grabbed with his beak to swing over. Once he had checked, it fell on the floor. He would have to change his tactics. Then he had an idea of grabbing the corner of the paper both sides with his beak, so it would not slide off the pole. He got halfway along when he heard the doorknob turn. Oh no, the door had started to open. Then he heard a woman say, "No, not that room, it's this one over here." Then he heard a man reply, and he said, "Oh, okay," and he shut the door. Oh, that was close. That was really a close one. One's getting a bit old for scares like that, thought the Major. He checked another 20 papers, and then he thought, hang on a minute. He went back to the newspaper he'd just checked, pulled it off the pole and laid it on the floor and read it again. Success of Blackpool's major attraction grows and grows. In 3 years' time, this now famous attraction will celebrate its huge success from such humble beginnings. In 1904, the first ride arrived. It was called Hiram Maxim Captive Flying Machine. Then in 1905, the first water ride called River Caves of the World. Yes, it really will be the 60th birthday of this great attraction. The council have assured us that they plan to mark this birthday in a special way. Blackpool can expect street parties, carnivals, and much, much more. This was it. This was what the mighty tree wanted. Now to get it home. He used his beak, to fold the newspaper and then picked it up with his beak and walked to the double doors. Now the Major had a problem, how to get out the doors. He couldn't knock with his beak as he was carrying the newspaper. He could put the paper down, but could he pick it up in time if that man was not at his desk and was near the doors? He could open the door straight away. The Major could not risk losing this newspaper. Then he spotted a bell. He had seen doorbells like this everywhere on people's houses. He was sure all he had to do was push it. It said above the bell, "Please ring for assistance." I wonder if I fly up if I could push the bell with my feet, and then I won't have to put the newspaper down. The Major flew up. He tried to quickly push the bell, however he missed it. Wally had his eyes on the doors all the time. He sees a huge gull's wings just quickly appear above the glass and disappear. What is that bird up to? He wondered. The Major tried again. He had to be so fast. He pushed the bell with his feet and landed. It made the man jump because, as far as he knew, no one was in that section of the library. He left his desk and went down the stairs to the double doors. He opened them. The Major walked past the man, but the edge of the newspaper brushed against the man's legs. As he looked down, he could not believe his eyes. There was a herring gull carrying a newspaper. For a brief moment he was in shock. He just watched the bird. Then he said, "Oh, no, you don't," and bent down to grab the newspaper. Now it was Wally's turn. He whistled to Sid and Harry. They ran out from their hiding place. There was such a commotion. People screaming, running, jumping on tables to get away from the rats. Robert was so happy he was jumping up and down. "See, I told you, Mummy. Now you have to believe me." The Major had flown onto a bookcase and was watching it all. He saw a couple approaching the front door. He flew down and walked towards the door. The boarding librarian was telling everyone to calm down. Just as the elderly couple entered the library, the Major calmly walked past them and flew to an alleyway opposite, between two shops, and waited for his friends. Slowly a crowd formed outside the library as people wondered what all the screaming was about. Harry shouted, "He's out safe, the Major. We can go." "Are you sure?" said Wally. "You promise?" "Yes, he went out at the same time that couple came in." "Right." Wally put his paws up to his mouth and whistled to his companions. "Come on, Sid, Harry, time to go." They ran towards the door. The boarding librarian opened the door, relieved to get these rats out of the library. The Major was so pleased to see everyone come out safely. Whilst they congratulated themselves on their successful mission, the poor man in the library was so confused about what had just happened. Did he really see a gull carrying a newspaper? He had to check. He walked to the newspaper section. He opened the doors and looked around. That's odd. The newspapers had obviously been looked at. The whole bottom row were pointing to the right, not straight, as they were in the morning. Half of the middle row too. The first newspaper of the middle row was on the floor, and there was a newspaper missing. The poor man was bewildered. He scratched his head. So that gull did steal a paper. The more he thought about it, the stranger it seemed. He knew this wasn't possible, but it seems like the rats were a decoy to keep his attention away from the gull. It seemed like a military operation. No, I just need a holiday.